like a backbeat. Oh, I didn't come up with any rhymes that I could rhyme ahead of time and do a boom to boom to boom. Oh wow. That's enough of that nonsense. How you guys doing? Happy, beautiful Wednesday. It's the middle of the week. It's the middle of the afternoon. It's a really weird time to just burst into a live stream. I should live stream like at times when all you unemployed people, you know, could join the employed members. Everybody's watching on their phone at work. I got fired because I was watching this guy try to like make a funky thing on his guitar. It was terrible. It was an accident, boss. I'll never do it again. It's nice to see you guys. Who do we have here this evening? This afternoon. Love Cat, Earthling Drew, Karen, Fanatic Forager, Dang Not First. Oh, I mean Scott. Ultimate Gardening. Hey, Ultimate Gardening, I did not forget you. I actually have on my list of things to do to record a segment for you. I'm just really slow. Hey, Scott. Hey, Josh. Hey, My Father's World. Jennifer K. Carrie. Eddie T. Eddie T is a good rapper name. Roger Beck. Earthling Drew. Gloria J. Hey, Gloria. Nice to see you again. Cindy. Monkey Mommy. Jessica. Lala Farm, hey, how you doing? Annie? Yeah, I'm very proud of you, Annie. What have I become? My empire of dust. Low Country Gardener. Reclamation. Flomaton Famous. Hey, neighbor. Hey, Karen. Citywide Gardens. Alan. Alan says happy 200K. Michael, Texian Patriot, Andy Gaddett. Man, we got a lot of folks on. My Florida Backyard, Helena Archer. My big machete is rusty and it's heavy. Hey, you could sing that. That's true. Hey, Vonnie from Ireland. Tim, man, I'm just, whew, no whining. Good name. Psalm 144. Hello. And Michael C6903. John and Ashley and Steady Homegrown. Man, there's a lot of people. Terry, Marvin, Kathleen, Tricky Vicky, Chris. I'm not even going to be able to get everybody. Molly, Beowulf, and Ginger in Tennessee. Lady Jacqueline, that's a nice name. Thank you very much. All right, so it's nice to see y'all. Hey, Don in Alabama. Margaret, South Florida. Hi, your volume is low. Thank you for that. Let me turn it up. Let's turn it up until it blows the radio apart. You're listening to WDTG in the afternoon. It is a sunny 2:13 for the drive home if you work one of those really early mornings. This would be the time you'd be getting off, but if not, you're just listening to me in the middle of your workday. I was at the gym and they had the radio station on the other day and this guy's just talking. He's like, what's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you? Sharon, we'll be back in just a minute. Have you ever tried to eat a pizza upside down? Well, this one guy did. I am watching the TikTok video right now. It's unbelievable. Oh my gosh, man. It's terrible. Okay, up to 11. Is there a naked doll behind me? I have no idea. Where do you see this? Yes, there is. my daughter left the Barbies in the... Man, you have a good eye. Here, let's put a Barbie that's got clothes on. There you go. My daughter likes to come in here and play. I don't know why they can't just leave the clothes on all the dolls. You know, it's like they lose all the clothes like in the first 5 minutes. Maybe it's just hot. So, thank you for the tip, Karen. And thank you very much. Gloria says nice artwork. Yeah, I just did a landscape painting the other day. This the neighbor had they'd cut a bunch of wood piles and spread them out amongst the trees. They'd taken a bunch of trees out and thinned them, and I thought that's kind of an interesting picture. And my daughter wanted to learn how to paint, so I said I would teach her. So we've been spending a little bit of time, taking a little bit of time out of the work week and finding places to go set up and paint. I actually went to school for art, not that it helped me very much. You really learn more on your own, I think, than you do from school. But yeah, I figured, I know how to oil paint, I'll show her. So anyhow, all right, so what is the news? We're 5 minutes and 58 seconds in. What is the big news? What is the big news? So, this last week, some of you may have seen the public post, but I really wanted to actually show you guys and talk about this new book because, well, I gave it away. This new thing, yeah, see, this clickbait doesn't work, right? Create Your Own Florida Food Forest is now in print after 2 years of work. Holy moly. It was back in, it's 2014 that I wrote the first Create Your Own Florida Food Forest. It was this little weenie booklet. I have a copy of it around here somewhere. It was the book that launched my writing career. Where did I put it? There it is. Here it is. This is the book that launched my writing career. And you can see it's not much of a book. It's a little skinny book. And I laid it out myself. It's not terribly laid out, but it's not the most beautiful thing in the world. It was kind of a manifesto, I would say, a booklet showing what you could do with your backyard. And at that point, I was working on 2 different food forest projects at the same time, one in South Florida and one in North Florida. I had also started on a food forest in Tennessee and then stopped. That was my first attempt at a food forest, and I didn't really go whole hog on it until I left Tennessee and moved to Florida in 2010. And I got really serious and said, this is it. I had this whole half-acre front yard. My front yard is going to be a food forest, which was somewhat entertaining to my neighbors who were like, well, I mean, one of the neighbors came over and he says, you know, the people that owned this house before, you know, they were lawn people. They had a really nice lawn. It was just, whew, you know, their grass looked amazing. And he's looking at me, and I'm looking around, and I've got piles of sticks and overgrown banks of weeds and nitrogen fixtures, and just everything is this big jungle. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I figured they must have had a lawn because, you know, or were serious about a lawn, because the entire barn in the back, there was this little barn area. It was like, there's a shelf in there just full of poisons. You know, weed and feed and this weed killer and this spray and this thing and all that stuff. It was kind of horrible to think about how much stuff had been put into that to make it grow grass. So I started transforming it. First thing I did was let the weeds grow out, and I started mowing paths through it, and I started putting in trees and then building out from the trees, making little islands out from the trees. And after a few years, I was really starting to see results, and I got really excited, and I wrote this little book. And at that point, I had a blog on Florida gardening called Florida Survival Gardening, which I later named a book that title because I liked the title. And I wrote this little book, and I put it on Amazon, and lo and behold, it started selling. And that's kind of what I hoped for. I hoped people would find it interesting and start, you know, I wanted to be a writer. And and in order to be a writer, you have to have some books out. So that was my little test book. Would people be interested in this idea, this food forest in Florida thing? Because Florida is so well suited to being forests. It's so rich and green, and it gets abundant rainfall until you cut it down and you try to plant a lawn, and then it's a constant maintenance issue. You know, you got to work at your lawn and work at your lawn and work at your lawn and work at your lawn. But if you let it grow into a jungle, you don't really have to work that much, except to make sure that the power lines don't get crushed and that sort of thing. So I wrote this little book, and it did okay. So after, 6 or so years, I realized I had so much more information, plus I'd done some gardening in the tropics, and both of my food forest systems were a decade old. And I was seeing what things had really worked, and I had experimented with the grocery row gardening, and I had done all these other bits and pieces, and I had watched these things grow, and one of the food forests got sold to somebody else, and they didn't really do much of anything with it for multiple years. And I went back and visited it, and I found that most of the trees and the systems were still working and still going on, and all you really needed to do was go in there for a couple of weekends and chop things out and clean things up with a machete and get rid of some weeds and pull some vines down and just dig a bunch of yam roots. There was over probably 500 pounds of citrus on the trees when I visited it, and probably that many pounds of yams in the ground that had just established themselves and continued to plant. So I realized this really, really works. And there were lots of berries that were in bloom and other things coming through that I knew would do incredible. As a matter of fact, it was too productive for the lady that owns it. And so, knowing all of what I knew and having seen these things happen over time, I had so much more data. I said, I need to expand. I need to take this little book right here and rewrite it and make it into a serious resource, not just like a little manifesto booklet with some ideas and some inspiration, but a serious resource for people that are interested in growing food forests in Florida. Now, I'm going to say, for those of you that are not in Florida, the data that is in the new book will apply. It applies to along the Gulf Coast. It applies in part to most of the United States that would be in zones 8, 9, 10, 11. That's basically where it would apply. And the portions, the data on each plant inside of it it's arranged by the layers of the food forest. I've got a lot of information on establishing the food forests, and I'm going to show you some pages from the inside here so you can get an idea of what it looks like. The other thing that we did, which was really exciting. Okay, so I took this original text, which was only 14,000 words or something like that, expanded it to about 100,000 words. Tons more information. Food forest divided up into different segments. And, your canopy, your sub-canopy, your vine layer, ground cover layer, etc. And I also gave plant profiles on a bunch of different species. And as I was doing this, I said, this could really benefit from a ton of illustrations. And so I did a call for artists. And some of you guys remember this. 2 years ago, I did a call for artists. And we had over 50 artists. Over 50 artists responded and gave us art for the book. And the artists have profiles. In the back of the book, there's a write-up. Each artist sent me a write-up on their work and who they are, so you can find the artists and their work as well. So let me show you some of the interior, because this is so cool. So this is earlier on in the book, the island method of planting a food forest. That is an original pen and ink illustration. This one is from Tom Sensible, actually. And it's just, this is gorgeous. And this time, instead of having instead of me doing all the layout on the book and just it looking okay but not looking great, I had a professional layout guy. We invested a lot of time and effort into it. It took, we had over 50 artists. There are 200 illustrations. There's 330 pages in the book. over 100 species profiles with where they fit into the hardiness of Florida, etc. And then it also I hired a professional book layout guy and graphic designer, so it's crazy. There is a little of my own artwork in it. Yes, Karen. Here's another page. This is as a food forest progresses. This is a look at, you know, the stages of a food forest and what you would expect in your yard as you grow it, which is really fun because when I wrote the first book, I was only a few years in, and now I've got 2 mature systems in 2 different places that I could go back and look at. This is inside of the plant profile section. That is the infamous Bulimbi. I did a video on Bulimbi some time ago that was rather bizarre on this channel. Some of you remember it. Those of you who have been around for more than a few years remember the In Search of Bulimbi video, which is it's all distorted. It looks like it was recorded off of VHS. It's awesome. And some of the art that was submitted is just incredible. Just gorgeous artwork. So many different people. So you got different illustrators for the different sections here. So we're in the sub-canopy trees portion right here. Chinese chestnut, and Cattleya guava, and cherry of the Rio Grande. And as you can see, you may not be able to see it on your phones. I might be able to zoom in. You can see, like, I've got the cold hardiness, mature height, propagation for different species, you know, what they can handle, how you would grow them. And here's another one. I love this illustration. I love both of these illustrations. The one on the right is by Kate Dollamore, who is a professional artist, a nature artist working in Florida. She does very beautiful little precise works. That is the Malabar chestnut on the right. And then the graceful flowing illustration of a loquat is from our own Tom Sensible, who's regular here. He did the illustrations for my other book that was in progress for a long time, the South Florida Gardening Survival Guide. But I like the juxtaposition of different people's art. It's really neat to see. It's like a gallery of different artists with different styles. Some people are more stylized. Some people have a very, very realistic, almost photorealistic approach. Some have fast, dashing lines. Some have precise, itty-bitty things. Some are cartoony. Some are minimalist. And some just look like something that you might have doodled during church. I think I'm going to draw a picture of a pindo palm, you know. So, anyhow, it's I'm very excited to finally have it in print, and I thought, you know what, I need to do a proper announcement stream. I was going to do a regular video for the channel, but Alan said I should probably do another live stream, so I'm going to find you the link for this book real quick. It will be available off Amazon. Somebody asked me that. Let me see if it got listed yet. I think I have the off Amazon link. 1 second. Yes, you can find all of my books direct from the printers here. And I'm going to show you. Let's see. A lot of people say, why do you sell your books on Amazon? You know, why would you support Amazon? Well, Amazon is supporting me. It's, you know, we know that these great big companies may not always have our best in mind, etc. But Amazon is the biggest player in town. If you're an author and you are not on Amazon, you're going to have a very, very difficult time. I have distribution on my books through any bookstore can get my books. I have worldwide distribution outside of Amazon's channels, which means that if you went into Barnes & Noble and you asked for one of my books, you could get it. If you went into your local bookstore, they would be able to log into their computer system, and they could almost certainly get you a copy of one of my books if you requested it. So if you don't mind waiting, Amazon is all about convenience. It's like one shop, one click shopping, and it's recommended, this is recommended, and this is recommended, and you end up getting free shipping, and it's delivered to your house in 2 days. And so that's a huge thing. A lot of people are like, I just want books right now, and if you were willing to wait, you could always go to your local bookstore and say, hey, would you order this for me? So I don't know if I'm on Libby or not. Possible. So yeah, Ashley says thank you for the non-Amazon link. No problem. All of my books are up there as well. So thank you, Eddie. That's really kind of you. So that's what's going on right now. That is my big news, is that Create Your Own Florida Food Forest is now available in paperback. It's a little more expensive than most of my other books because it's much bigger. It is a large book with a ton of illustrations, and it took a long time to write. It is an in-depth resource with lots and lots of bits and pieces in it. So thank you for waiting all this time. I know I got people kept asking me for it. I'm going to run over what's in it really fast. First of all, I've got the first section of the book covers the system. So why a food forest, the layers of a food forest. If you have a food forest, where will your kids play? What are you going to do? Replacing your lawn with a forest. Where will the kids play? Building a foundation of a forest, overplant or go home, and at last, fruit trees. The next chapter is growing your own plants from almost scratch, then food forests in small spaces, wildlife and food forest systems, figuring out what grows in your yard, starting with existing forest, and the progression of a food forest. So the first 100 pages or so of the book are all covering the system and objections to a food forest and how food forest has worked based on my experience and the experience of other good food forest people. And then we go on and cover the species. So the species is a big plant list section. So the next 204 pages, almost, let's see, yeah, the next 200 pages are about the species. And it goes canopy trees, subcanopy trees, palms, shrubs, vines, herbaceous plants, and ground covers, and nitrogen fixers and support species. So I covered some stuff that you might want to plant just to support the system as well, because I think the support plants get overlooked a lot. The plants for the pollinators, the plants for soil building, the plants for chop and drop for compost, the plants for barriers. I even have bougainvillea covered in there because it's a good barrier plant. So this is a very in-depth reference book, but it's entertaining. And I've got bits and pieces of stories from different people that live in Florida, and different trees and plants. And like I tell the story, I interviewed a guy who was growing a pecan tree in Hollywood, Florida, all the way down in tropical South Florida. And so some of these things, there's a lot of interest in there, and some notes and observations on the different plants that we've grown and how they grow, how much pruning they can take, and all kinds of things like that. So anyhow, if you are in Florida, I hope you will pick up a copy. I think you'll find it useful. The subtitle is Florida Gardening Nature's Way. And if you own the first edition is only a tiny little sliver of this massive second edition. So thank you all for the patience. This was a long writing project, and I was trying to keep YouTube running and writing the blog, and I worked on a couple of Steve Solomon's books in the interim. I worked on a book for John Moody, Winning the War on Weeds. Started my own publishing house, moved countries, planted a new food forest, did the little Grocery Road gardening booklet in between, wrote the South Florida gardening booklet, and still I was working on this one, still working on this one, still working on this one, still working on this one. So that is the brand new book, and if you are in South Florida and you didn't see it, The South Florida Gardening Survival Guide is a little book I wrote for South Florida gardeners, which would be zones 10 and 11. And that is all around gardening, and it also has hilarious illustrations from Tom Sensible. I found out what a good illustrator Tom Sensible was because he volunteered as one of the artists for Create Your Own Florida Food Forest, and then we turned around. I was like, dude, I want to hire you to illustrate this South Florida Gardening Survival Guide. Can you give me a bunch of crazy illustrations of iguanas? And so he did. So that's what's cooking. Create Your Own Florida Food Forest, now available on Amazon and wherever fine books are sold. So let me answer some questions. My publishing house is called Good Books. Good Books Publishing. I am going here. I'm going to look around here. Trying to figure out, let's see, I'm going to go back just a little bit. Well, I put it on Audible? Possibly. I put a lot of my books on Audible a few years ago, but the time involved with voicing a book compared to the amount of sales the audiobooks get me has not really been a good return. It takes a week or so to voice and edit a book. I'm talking like a solid week of work, which means I don't write my blog, I don't do YouTube videos, I don't work on the next book project, I don't do anything, I don't leave the house, and it's a lot of reading and editing. So and then the return on it is so-so. Sometimes it's just simply not, it's mostly not been worth it, because they tend to sell in print the most, and then Kindle, it's like print is a big chunk of the sales, and then Kindle is like this, and audiobooks are like this, particularly since the pandemic. I think before the pandemic, when a lot of people were commuting, the audiobooks did better, and our audiobook sales just plunged after March or so of 2020, and it's not recovered. So TDF says, ordered mine on last night on Amazon. Well, thank you. Thank you, Awaken the Wild Soul. All right, let's see what we got here. Eat Your Backyard says, I purchased a sweet lime buggy. Attack Titan says, make a video on cold climate plants. That's not really my specialty. It's not. I have gardened, the furthest north I have gardened is zone 7, so I'm not a good resource for that. MJK says, love your writing style. Well, thank you. My dad taught me how to write, and then I think I got worse at it over time. Actually, you know what? I had to write for radio for a long time, so I had to write these little radio ads, and you had to pack as much information as possible into something short. So my books tend to be short, sweet, and to the point. Like I go and rewrite sentences to cut out extra words, and to make things as concise and chopped as possible. Sometimes I believe it's a little too terse, but I appreciate it. I like it to be more conversational and less professorial. I enjoy that. I like writing. It took me a lot of years of writing to get what I would say good at writing. And I'm good at writing now. My first novel was terrible. My parents spent a lot of time teaching me how to write properly. How to write good, or... Yeah, Lover Bear Farm says, hard to make a video on cold climate plants without a cold climate. Ginger Ninja says, nice painting. Well, thank you. I said earlier in the stream, my daughter wanted to learn how to be a painter. She would like to become a professional painter. alongside her seed business, she would like to be able to be a landscape and portrait painter, and I know how to oil paint, so I've been spending some time. It's in here drying. This is the safest spot for it. I'm not just showing it off for the stream. It's just sitting there because it's gotta dry for, like, oils take like a couple of weeks before they tack up completely, and it's not safe to leave a painting inside of my house with all the kids running around. Nunya says, are there food forests in the desert? Not usually. However, if you were around an oasis, yes. There's a interesting little video. I think it's called A 1,000-Year-Old Food Forest. And it was a video that Jeff Lawton put together about a date, palm, pomegranate, fig type of a forest system in somewhere in the Middle East, and it's been there forever, you know, like a millennium. The milkmaid says, I think I'll be getting this for a friend in Florida. They need to get their behinds moving, growing food. Yeah, I think it's a really good time to grow food. Florida is an excellent place to do perennial plantings. The soil doesn't do well when it's tilled. It doesn't do well holding compost. It's just dust, and the organic matter burns out of it. But you'll notice something very interesting. Where there are long-term established perennials and trees, the ground starts to make topsoil, and it starts to get moist and cool, and worms move into it. But annuals are a constant work in South Florida. It's a terrible place to grow a traditional vegetable garden as such, but it's an amazing place to grow food forest systems, especially in the farthest south part of Florida. When you get to the north part of Florida, you are limited by the fact that it freezes. You can't grow mangoes and papayas and coconuts and things like that, but you can grow a lot of peach trees and plums and other things. So one of the reasons we planted a food forest system in South and in North Florida was I wanted to do research with the tropicals at the same time I was doing the North Florida temperate species. So one of them was in the border of zone 8 and 9. The other one was a solid zone 11. Well, thank you, Marilyn. I appreciate it. William says Pyracantha is a good divider. Yeah, Pyracantha is a good divider. Apparently, it also works as a rootstock for loquats. The milkmaid says, does this cover all areas of Florida, such as the more swampy and southern areas? Yes. I even have a section on gardening in the swamp. Ginger says, I just got Compost Everything book. Awesome. I think you'll enjoy it. John says, David, watching your videos and then watching Stefan's videos, that would be Stefan Subkowiak, I assume, really gets me energized nearly daily to get outside more. Awesome. Stefan is like the Canadian equivalent to a Canadian commercial size equivalent to what I do on kind of a backyard scale in the tropics. I really enjoy his videos and what he does. Sharp guy. And very knowledgeable. Skipping around a little bit. Marilyn has 2 of my novels. Hey, good. Nunya says, can I send you a voice sample and do the audio for me? Maybe. Sure. Send me, that's not a bad idea. I just dropped my email address. Homeschool Reading Project! How long does shipping take if you order from the publishing house? It's usually within 2 weeks. It's slower than Amazon. I don't deal with the shipping myself, mind you. It comes directly from the printers. It's sort of like a backdoor entry to the printers. I just have it's the Good Books portal which enters that goes right from the printers to you, which is a little different. They do the distribution. Yeah, I like print for posterity as well, Milkmaid. Can I grow gooseberry or currants? No, not well. I planted gooseberries a year and a half ago, and they roasted in the sun and died. Tierra says, hi, David. Love from Uruguay. Well, love right back at you. How do I make income? Do I have another job, or do I make my living from the land and cultivating plants? I used to work in radio writing advertisements. I also painted houses. I built some furniture and sold it. I did a variety of different things. I did some voice acting for a while as well. I used to read audiobooks and time-consuming work. And then I started writing gardening books. At this point, my main income is gardening books. I wrote Totally Crazy Easy, Florida Gardening, Florida Survival Gardening, Compost Everything, Grow or Die. And that series of books has become my income. You generally don't get rich as a writer, but it is very satisfying. And I'm very, very blessed that that is where my income, I can actually live on it now. I don't have to do the freelance work that I used to have to do all over the place. Bernadette says, I was gifted a banana plant. It was in a pot for 8 years. It never produced, but I put it in the ground in March. Does it have a future to produce bananas? Probably. It really depends on your climate. If your climate doesn't freeze, then it will eventually bloom. It's just got to get to a point where it can really grow. They need a lot of water, and they like a lot of fertility. Potassium and nitrogen in particular. Thank you, Lala Farm. I'm still waiting on my copy of the book to arrive. I wanted to show it off in the stream, but I don't even have it yet. My first novel was called Cloning Ray, and I never put it up for sale or anything. It was about this like really boring guy that got cloned multiple million times and then voted himself president. What are my tips for Climate Zone 7? Love the Food Forest book. Zone 7 is really nice because you are solidly temperate. You don't get the big swings usually. My garden was in Tennessee, so your mileage may vary, but I had great success with pears, apples, peaches, plums, figs, and I grew Apache thornless blackberries that did awesome. I had multiple grapes that did very well, and I could grow just about any herbs. The clay soil required, I did a lot of deep mulching to fix it up, and it thrived after that. But if you were going to do a food forest in that system, I would probably use pecans and walnuts, and then plant plants around those that could handle it. Sometimes some plants don't like the jug alone, but some can handle it. I love comfrey and Jerusalem artichokes for biomass producing plants. If you've got some colder hardy bamboo varieties, they're very nice to grow there. Strawberries do really well as a ground cover layer, but you can also grow sweet potatoes as a ground cover layer in the spring. Regular white potatoes, red potatoes do great in that climate as well, because they like it a little longer. Cool season is very good, but you can also grow some hot stuff like hot climate stuff like okra. It's you got a long enough summer to really work with. For a shrub, for the shrub layer, I like gooseberries. We grew those there. Blueberries did great for us. If your soil is more acid, if it's not more acid, you got to put a bunch of rotten pine bark in with them. I loved Nanking cherries. Those were great. I grew horseradish and catnip. We grew a lot of different types of squashes, and we did the melon pit thing out of Compost Everything. There's a lot of stuff you could do in Zone 7. I wouldn't mind living in Zone 7 again. It was very pleasant. Max says I need some Everglades tomato seeds. My daughter often has them in the Good Gardens store on Etsy, but I don't know if she has them right now. Let me see if she has them. or if she's sold out. Looks like she's sold out again. She sells out pretty fast. I know she's got more. Here's the link. It'll be back in soon. Molly says, how come jujube trees are so hard to come by? Thoughts on those? I was thinking it would be a practical alternative to actual date palms because they're too tall. I don't find them to be nearly as good a fruit as actual dates, but the Chinese, more tropical variety of jujubes tasted better to me than the ones that are more cold tolerant. They're very pretty trees, but they didn't do all that great for me. There's probably better ones. Mulberry is very fast fruiting. Peaches and plums usually fruit pretty quickly too. Figs usually fruit very quickly. Okay, Jessica. Daisy is going to be... She'll probably have paintings up for sale, but she doesn't feel confident enough in her painting yet. She's getting better very rapidly. Yeah, good idea, Sean. Sean says if the Lord provides property in Tennessee, I might have to write a book on Zone 7 food abundance. Hey, you know, there's all these niches. People are always interested in knowledge. If you go chase and you make something that works, write about it. People want to know about it. Do it. Theta Wave says, David, would you consider writing a book about wild edible sources to feed your chickens, or just the survival gardener version on raising chickens without the commercial fluff? Yeah, I have some stripped down systems for raising chickens. I'm not awesome with chickens, but I have a system that works. I have them integrated well into my gardening system now. I would like to set up chickens the way I really want to set them up, but right now, because we're renting, I just kind of have them. I don't like the way it's set up properly. I know how to do it right, but they're a long ways from my garden. They should be right next to the garden so I can I should be able to throw the compost from the chicken yard directly onto the garden beds and throw the garden waste directly into the chickens. And the way it's arranged right now is there's, you know, the 300 feet of walking between where the chickens are and where the gardens are, and it's kind of frustrating. So at some point maybe, but I'm not that happy with the way I'm doing it right now, and I also am not growing much of my chicken feed. My gardens get destroyed by the chickens when I let them free range, and they tear it all to shreds. And I need a better system. When I get a good integrated system that I'm really happy with, possibly. I was not in the Navy, but both of my grandfathers were on ships in World War II. Homestead Medic says, how can I quickly improve the red clay of North Alabama / Tennessee line area? Throw down some gypsum and get as much biomass on top of the ground as possible, whether that means growing lots of plants to get roots into it, and then don't till it, especially don't till it when it's wet. You want root channels to go through it and open it up and loosen it. What we did is we put down cardboard, and I put down an entire foot of Tree Company mulch and a bunch of rotten straw, and I put down all the fall leaves we could get and coffee grounds from a local coffee shop. And after about a year, the ground underneath got richer and loamier. But if I turned it up to the sun, especially when it was moist, it would turn back into brick. Gloria says, I have several stands of bananas fruiting now. Should I call some of the pups? There are a lot. Yeah, you can. If you thin it out a little bit and spread them around. Generally, the commercial banana people, they keep the stands at like 3 to 4 trees per clump. Just a quick reminder for those of you who have just shown up. We were talking at the early part of the stream about my new book release, Create Your Own Florida Food Forest, which is now available on Amazon and in the Good Books store. And it is 330 pages, over 200 illustrations, and it is for zones 8, 9, 10, 11, and probably all the way through the Caribbean if you really wanted to push it. Banana people. Scott says, I wonder if you could use drywall for gypsum. I've heard that somebody told me you could do that. But I don't really trust it. I don't really know what they might put in it. Let's see. Tom says, how do you... Oh, you want to look up Stefan. It is Stefan Sobkowiak. Look this guy up. He's on YouTube. How do you deal with a hot climate? I generally don't garden in the dead middle of the day, and I try not to film videos then either, because it's basically just me sweating, and the light is horrible because it's so brilliant. The camera looks horrible. My last video, part of it, the first part of it was filmed around 9 or 10 in the morning, and it looks horrible. I can't stand the light. The second half of it looks better. Awesome Pack 80 sends a super chat and says, can you recommend a banana variety and a mango variety that would do well in Zone 9A, South Louisiana? Love your channel. Thank you. Okay, for bananas, two types. There's a type called Rajapuri. Just dropped it in the chat. And there is a type called Orinoco. Orinoco is not a great banana as such, but it is more vigorous and tends to fruit better and live through cold events. But basically, if you can feed bananas and keep them in a somewhat sheltered location, you should get fruit at least every other year or so. The problem is in your climate is that they often start to put out a stalk of bananas and bloom maybe in August, September. And it needs a few months to ripen up, and then it gets cooler and cooler, and they stop growing, and then you get a frost, and the top of it freezes off, which is really hard to deal with. And that happened to me all the time in North Florida until I just planted so many bananas that there was always something that was coming in. The Rajapuri is a faster growing type. It makes good bananas. Another type to try is called ice cream. As for mangoes, I don't have a good mango recommendation for Zone 9A. They're generally not particularly cold hardy. I would love to pull off mangoes here. I'm in 8B, but I don't know of any that would actually fruit. They may freeze back and come back from the ground, but I don't know. Another way, back to what Tom was saying, how do I deal with the hot climate? With the plants, I like to grow plants from Southeast Asia and Equatorial Africa and Central America through the summer. So they're used to the heat and the rain and the humidity and the bugs. So yard-long beans, okra, true yams, that sort of thing. I just got some taro root that I'm going to plant, which I'm very excited about. Very glad to have it, so... Moving down here. Tricky Vicky said, I found my Cocoa Beach plant friend from Facebook. He says he doesn't know if you could root coffee cuttings, so he grew his from seed. They grow much easier from seed. It's possible to root them under mist, but it's difficult. Daikon radishes are a good suggestion for clay. Peaceful Acres Farm. Growshake Phil says, I need a few restaurants to get me some slop for my chickens. Sick of spending $60 a month on feed. I agree. A Fishes and Loaves Life says, any idea for good nut tree beside tropical almond and not cashew? Cashew's a pain in the neck. Because of the fact that it'll burn you. It's very toxic. And the processing is a pain in the neck. I understand. Malabar chestnut is one, and macadamia nut is another one. Macadamia nut would be excellent. If you can grow tropical almond, you should be able to grow both of those. And I would grow coconuts as well. Absolutely grow coconuts. Suskovich chicken tractor is recommended here. You know, I have looked at different tractor systems. I'll tell you what, my chickens always get murdered in tractors. Things dig underneath them and kill them. I have to put them in a bunker here. They get yanked out from underneath. It's crazy. I let my chickens out, usually if I'm going to let them out to scratch around, I try to let them out around 4 o'clock in the evening so they don't do too much damage in the garden before they go back. Nunya says, are there any banana plants for Zone 7? Yes, but it doesn't make edible fruits. It's called Musa Basju. I just planted a couple in my garden. I actually planted one in the grocery row garden. It is a fiber banana. Very beautiful banana tree. Vigorous, fast growing, very cold tolerant, but it's not a fruiting, it's not a good edible type. Marilyn, you started your own swamp water. Good work, girl. What? Wait until you smell it. It's amazing. Could I write a book about growing in non-native climates? Nunya says. I don't know. I mean, I wrote Push the Zone, which is about growing tropical plants outside of the tropics. How you can zone push things to a couple of zones north of you. You know, north of where it's supposed to grow. Talk about how I grew coffee in North Florida and how you could grow peaches in a colder climate, that sort of thing. But most of what I grow is non-native anyways, so it's kind of a strange topic to cover, I guess. Hey, William, nice to see you. Let's see what you're trying to get here. Question and answer says, I really love honeydew melon. That's all for now. Yeah, it's good. Betty says okra is her Z veggie. That's funny. I'm trying to catch here. Trying to catch up here. Man, there's a lot of questions. Luigi says, could I plant tomatoes currently? I live in Madrid, Spain with climate zone 9. You think they'll have time to mature before frost? Yeah, they would have time to mature, but the chances of them actually setting the fruit if you get a warm summer there are not very good. See, when it gets hotter, they don't pollinate very well, and they tend to get disease issues and die off. Usually you want to do them earlier in the year or later in the year. So with Zone 9, I would probably, if I was going to plant tomatoes there, I would probably try starting them in middle of August and go for like cherry tomatoes or fast-growing determinate types. And then you might have a chance to get them in the fall, but generally through the heat of summer, they don't do particularly well. Plants to grow for a chicken flock in Zone 9, Texas, Tim says. Brown top millet, corn. You can take your cull potatoes and cook them down. You can also chop up squashes and feed them to the chickens, especially if you cook them first. I have not crushed sugarcane and made sugar out of it, Ashley, but I made syrup by chopping it into pieces and boiling the sugar out of it and then taking that water and cooking it down. It's a very slow process, but it tasted delicious. Miles of Totality says, advice on growing moringa from cuttings. You should try to get a cutting that's like an inch around and bury it about halfway into the ground. Don't water it too much and it'll root. But I like them much better from seeds. The ones that I've planted from cuttings tend to have very weak root systems. I don't like it very much. And they grow so fast from seed, I don't need to bother with it. Rachel says, how much space do dwarf fruit trees really need? I have a smaller yard, but I'd like to try some. You don't even need to plant dwarf fruit trees. You just have to prune whatever fruit trees you have to the size that you want them to be. I have a couple of videos on it, but there's also a book. 1 second. Let's see if I can find this. There's a book called Grow a Little Fruit Tree by Anne Ralph. I'll give you my Amazon link, because then I'll make a couple of pennies on it if you buy it. But this book was really, really helpful. Great little book, and I keep recommending it because you could pretty much take any tree. If you use a dwarfing rootstock, you end up with a weaker root system. So what you do is you decrease the vigor of a larger tree with a really good root system by proper pruning in the proper time. Let me see here. Man, my net is running slow today. I hope I'm not lagging too much on you guys. That is Grow a Little Fruit Tree. But you really only need, like, I would grow a fruit tree in, we're talking like 6 foot by 6 foot of space. I could grow a fruit tree. Let's see. What's the most northern zone where sugarcane will grow? Probably zone 6 or 7. It's pretty good. If you're, that's getting borderline. But if you're beyond that, you can plant sugar beets. And if you're even further than that, you can always tap maple trees. What's the best way to prevent and treat squash vine borer? SR says. People say that spraying them with neem will keep it out, but I haven't had any luck with it. They always kill stuff anyways. I just bury pieces of the vine as the vine grows and let them root out of the vine. That way, if it gets drilled further back, it's got different sets of roots at different places. Should chicken food scraps be cooked before we feed the chickens? No, I just give them whatever. It doesn't matter. Chickens can eat anything. Chickens are like pigs. I don't know if there's a difference between those jabuticabas, passionate fruit. I have not been able to try both of them. All I've ever had is the black jabuticaba, which was delicious. Any advice on how to root a shoot from a commercial fruit tree rootstock? It really depends on the rootstock. Usually those rootstocks are grown from seeds, and then you graft on top of it. But you can also often divide them off. There's a method, I think it's called stooling, where you make a stool. Basically, you chop a plant, you chop the rootstock down, and you cover it with sawdust, and it starts to make new shoots, and then those new shoots root in the ground, and you divide them off. Basically, like, you divide the suckers off. That's possible. But air layering off it works too. Thank you, Pierogi. Yeah, chickens will eat chickens. That's true. Can we get bacon or make bacon-type meat from chickens? Rabbits? Probably. You know, if you salted and smoked it, it'd be pretty close. Yeah, bees are another good option, Beowulf says. Bit of work, but... Alright, so... we're coming up on 1 hour here. And that means I should probably go. But I have to pitch my book. Wait, not that one. That one. One more time. 2 years in the making. 330 pages. Over 50 artists. Amazing artists. Bunch of whole plant species. A bunch of plant species for Florida. It's the best reference book for Florida food forests. It's kind of a forced rhyme. It's not even a rhyme. It's the best you'll ever get, with real stories of real food forests inside. Create your own Florida food forest. Anyhow, thank you guys for watching. If you do not have the book, there is a link below in the description of this video, and hopefully we get enough sales to make it worth all of the effort and time. So if you can help me, if you want to support this channel, go buy a copy. If you don't live in Florida, go give it to a friend that lives in Florida. And the best way to support this channel and the work that I do is to buy my books. That's what I do. I'm a book writer that ended up a YouTuber. So, and thank you all for the also for the patience and for the encouragement and all the when is it coming out? When is it coming out? When is it coming out? You know, it's good. It was a lot of work. Very, very glad to have it. Very, very glad to have it done and finished and have such beautiful artwork from so many different artists. I didn't do this all by myself. I mean, I want you to look these artists up. They're good, and they were very generous with their time and with their talents to put this book together. So I'm hoping that people go and they discover some of these artists and go, I want to hire that gal or hire that guy, and man, this is some nice art. So Jake says, does anyone know what Grow Zone the book was specifically from? This book is Zone 8, 9, 10, 11, and beyond. So, the trees appearing in this ad were paid for their opinion. That's funny. Alright, God bless you all. Catch you soon. And I hope to do another video later this week. Until next time, Mayor Thumb.